Alrighty, y'all, we got another trade to talk about. Maybe not the biggest deal in the world, but I think this has enough implications to do a small video about it, and then we'll cover some of the other things going on. But the Washington Wizards are trading Jonas Valanciunas, someone that we knew as soon as he signed here in free agency that the whole goal was to basically get 2 second-round picks for him. They've traded him to the Sacramento Kings, who have been pretty active at this deadline for City Sissoko, a guy that they just got from the Spurs in that Zach LaVine, De'Aaron Fox deal, and yeah, the 2 second-round picks. So, quick evaluation of this. This first comment, it might be the most important part of this, right? Is that this is another center that's now off the books for the Lakers, right? We all know that the Lakers are desperately trying to go get a center, along with some of the other teams around the NBA that we know are trying to go get center. Centers are a hot commodity right now. There's really not enough of them in the NBA. There's always somewhat of a shortage in the NBA just because, believe it or not, there's less 7-foot dudes and like 6'8" and above, really, dudes than there are not, right? So it's a hard position to fill, but that's a guy off the books to the Lakers. I don't think that was probably the starting option that they were looking for, but Jonas Valanciunas is off the market. If you're a Wizards fan, you should be probably pretty psyched about this, right? You brought him onto the team for the sole purpose of being a vet on the team for a little bit. Your team is horrible, so it doesn't really matter much right now anyway, but you got 2 second-round picks for him. If you go and look at the actual Wizards here via Fanspo, take a look at some of the picks that they have, because it's not like an enormous amount of picks for how bad they are. They do have a lot of second-round picks, which they're continuing to add to that collection of that, so good for them, right? Just continue to acquire draft capital and things like that, because we're going to want to compile those into something more valuable at some point, right? That's just how this stuff is going to work, but we don't know what exactly those picks are yet, if there's like protections on them or things like that. But regardless, you get Sissoko, who, if you were to ask Spurs fans, like, they think he's an interesting athlete and stuff. He's not anything superb, but you know what, he's going to get a chance to show himself in Washington, so it's probably not the worst thing for him, even though I've really appreciated a lot of the comments on the Chris Middleton trade from earlier that they did, where people are like, wow, the Bucks must really hate Chris Middleton if they sent his ass to Washington, man. So I don't know, maybe there's more to that than meets the eye. But no, I think Valanciunas to Sacramento is kind of an interesting move, because Sacramento was, again, one of those teams where it was like, okay, we know that they could also use a big man, right? But Valanciunas isn't exactly what we were looking for here. So I already forgot who we're sending back. City Sissoko right here. And let's try this trade out. This is what ends up happening, right? Roster compliance. Sacramento would have 13 standard contract players after this. They need to get to 14 afterwards. Okay, yeah, so Sacramento's going to take care of that stuff afterwards. But the Wizards save $8 million. Cool, right? This now gives them quite a bit of tax space, because before then, where were we at? Because they just acquired a lot of money in Chris Middleton, right? So we take a look and we undo all of this stuff. They weren't even over the tax space anyway, but regardless, obviously, this is a money-saving move for them. This is a guy that they can experiment with a little bit in Sissoko. Cool, right? Why not? And then the Kings, like we mentioned, they get Valanciunas, who, you take a look at Valanciunas' numbers for this year, and honestly, like, he's been pretty reliable for the Wizards off the bench this year. They're mostly playing Sarr, and there's a good reason for playing Sarr at the end of the day. Sarr's been really good defensively and everything, and look, they're more so concerned with developing him, but in very, like, limited minutes, just about 20 minutes a game, you're getting about 11 points out of him, you're getting 8 rebounds, like, the assist numbers, like, honestly aren't that bad for his position, turning it over a bit much, but he is on the Washington Wizards, so, you know, is what it is. And the field goal percentage, not bad at the end of the day, for not having anybody setting you up for anything and kind of just having to go to work and do things the dirty way like Valanciunas likes to do. Fair enough. My question is like, okay, clearly the Kings needed a backup center, right? It's very clear. You look down their roster, and if you ask Kings fans, they'd really prefer not to see Alex Len on the court anymore. Fair enough. I'm with you guys, right? I'm with you guys. It's not a great option down there. They wanted rim protection, right? They didn't get it here, so now they have 2 centers that really can't protect the rim, and they definitely dropped in defense when they traded Fox for LaVine, that you could argue they got better offensively, actually, by the end of all this, which maybe that's just their calling card, right? Maybe that's what they're going to do, and they're going to hope that they've got enough defense between Keon Ellis and Keegan Murray to make up for the rest of them, right? But I do think it's probably a plan C option for them, right? Like, I'm sure they tried to go after 1 or 2 other guys that can maybe protect the rim. Like, this is why I'm saying, like, I think the Nick Richards thing is, like, insane, that, like, the Suns didn't get more for him, because I feel like a bidding war could have been had for Nick Richards for how cheap he was, the rim protection that he brings and stuff like that. I don't know. That just feels like something that could have been had. But if you're a Kings fan, 2 second-round picks, and at least you brought in a competitive guy that's under contract, a very team-friendly contract at that, when there's not a ton of centers out there right now, for $9-10 million, I don't think this is the worst thing in the world. Clearly, Sacramento wants to try to remain competitive while they're bringing in new coach Doug Christie and everything. Cool. I don't think this is any real skin off your back. You look at the potential picks that they could have moved or whatever. I don't know. I don't think it's anything that you'd personally trip about. Maybe there's protections on them too or something, because I find it hard to believe they're both unprotected. I don't know if we've got any like actual updates on that as of yet, because I'm kind of reacting to this in real time. Yeah, no, not really, but I don't know. I think this is a fine move for both teams at the end of the day. If we can go down and look at some of the other trades that have happened today, basically New Orleans dumped Daniel Theis to the Oklahoma City Thunder, and the Thunder got another pick. We don't know what that pick is or anything. The Thunder just continue to make really smart moves. They're like, okay, yeah, no, we'll buy one of your players, because believe it or not, despite us being one of the best teams in the NBA, we're actually really financially set right now, because the Thunder are just perfect at what they do, right? Good for them. So they get another draft pick, presumably one like 8 or 9 years down the line or something like that, right? So that they can space them out or whatever. They take the money so that New Orleans can drop below the luxury tax. The New Orleans owner is very well known in the industry for being quite the cheapskate and everything. And look, like, this team's horrible this year, right? Like, it's not going well for them, so they shouldn't be a luxury tax team. I'm not saying that was a bad strategy at all. I'm just saying, like, that's kind of a component of it. They're like, hey, we don't want to be spending any more money than we have to. We get rid of Theis. They don't need to fill the roster spot with necessarily anything crazy. They're probably just going to play Carlo a little more, who I saw got some minutes recently, and I'm very curious to watch that guy play. I'm telling you guys, I've seen a little bit of film of him, and I'm very interested. I'm not saying he's like a superstar or anything, but I'm very curious to see him play. So very smart move for New Orleans. The Thunder, will they keep Theis? I don't think it'd be the worst thing if they did. Like we said, big men are tough to come by. If he gets bought out, I'm sure there's going to be plenty of people clamoring to get him, just because, like I said, there's bigs in need all over the NBA. There's like 2 teams per division, it feels like, that are trying to get people like that. And then a trade that we all heavily suspected, the Celtics are trading Jaden Springer and their 2030 second round pick to the Houston Rockets. They're also both exchanging like heavily protected picks or whatever. This move made a lot of sense. Jaden Springer, interesting young player at the end of the day. Probably not anything to blink about too hard if you're a Houston Rockets fan or anything, but this saves the Celtics a lot of money, because the repeater tax is kicking their butt. He makes about $4 million in salary, but getting rid of him and taking nothing back is going to save him about $16 million as a franchise overall. So the move just made a lot of sense. It's something that we've been predicting since like the beginning of the season. So totally expected. But hey, we're just getting started with this trade deadline, man. It's getting more and more interesting, and more pieces are coming off the board. So I'm curious to hear what you guys think, as always. But yeah, especially if you're a Kings or Washington fan, you guys have both been active in the past couple days. If only my Chicago Bulls could be active, that would be great. Oh, by the way, KD says he doesn't want to go to the Warriors, so I guess we'll see with that. All right, thanks so much. Bye.